Time for another rare personal replay, myself versus Turin. He's coming in hot with the Chaos Dwarfs, and I have begrudgingly accepted the dark side and am playing vampire counts. Should be pretty interesting. On the face of it, I decided to go with a lot of cavalry to see if I could exploit the lack of anti-large in general. For Chaos Dwarfs, obviously don't have a ton of armor piercing, but we do have some. We've got one unit of Hex Race out on the far side. A little bit risky, I think, in some ways to take ethereals against Chaos Dwarfs because they have a decent amount of magic damage, but certainly the Hex Race have mobility to avoid something like some Kadai Fireborn or the Infernal Ironsworn, both of which Turin has brought. Got some Blood Knights here. We've got the Varix Reavers and two more Black Knights with Lances for that high charge. Got some zombies and skeletons alongside two corpse carts, including the Necromancer, which is both on Unholy Lodestones. That's right. No, the Balefire does give fire resistance, but it also gives fire damage. Not sure if it's all that useful because of that. I mean, yeah, the fire resistance thing is a big one. Not that Chaos Dwarfs have a ton of it, but it's just, you know, like a 15% damage nerf across the board. But then you also are going to take less damage, especially on key units due to that extra fire resistance. But anyway, for Turin's build here, he's got a couple of Infernal Ironsworn Gordas, the Backstabber on foot. He's got some Fire Glaives here, lots of Laborers, a couple of Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, and a Magma Cannon, which definitely can see the overtunement, as it's already pretty much taken care of the Varix Reavers. It does also technically have magic damage in melee, but due to the low melee attack, I'm not really worried about it doing much to the Hex Race, so we're going to charge in here. Fireborn are also close by, so it's going to have to be a quick hit and run on my part if I don't want to get completely eaten up, and we do manage to do that. Also managed to waste a spell of Turin's, so that's great so far. On the flanks, I'm just attacking the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. With the Black Knights, they're going to be one of the best kind of targets for that. Also summoning, of course, zombies on top of the glaives. Try and stop them from shooting and get Manfred in here. Get that sword of unholy power. Feasting on some souls of the Chaos Dwarfs and getting some extra winds of magic. Cav Rush is definitely underway, and we're able to mop up quite a few units, but of course the Infernal Ironsworn and the Infernal Guard will both be really tough targets for me. I don't have any Grave Guards or any kind of direct anti-infantry armor piercing, so it'll be tough, but the Hex Race can at least contribute, certainly against the Infernal Guards. Ironsworn do have magic attacks, so I don't really think this through, to be honest, and fortunately I don't have any AoE damage with Manfred. I was really wishing I had brought like Wind of Death with him, or else maybe take the Lamian and take Pit of Shades. Was nerfed, I think, but still is probably worth taking because Chaos Dwarfs don't have any magic resistance, any spell resistance like the regular dwarfs do. Does mean that they are somewhat vulnerable to it, especially these elite infantry units like this right here. It'd be beautiful Wind of Death. I'd be able to delete two elite infantry units, and that would significantly swing this battle, but as it is right now, it's going to be pretty tough for me to kill them, but try and mop up everything else first and see if I can just drag them down with numbers, perhaps in the late game. At least that's my plan. Turin's doing a great job just holding out as it is. Standing and slugging it out. Manfred's going to take a risky drop right into the Kadai here, but try and set them up if I can get a nice charge with the Knights here. I love this blue color scheme on these Black Knights, by the way. See the classic Varix Reavers getting in here as well. And the Kadai definitely taking some significant damage. We've also managed to mostly shut down the Magma Cannon and prevent it from shooting. I'm going to be cycle charging quite a bit with the Hex Rates as well. But a nice Hellhammer there from Turin's going to do some pretty huge damage. Not that much, but definitely some very solid damage to my Black Knights there. And of course the zombies and everything else really haven't been doing much. Also, just completely ignoring the fact that Gordas is duking it out here with the Necromancer on his cart, which is a great place for Gordas to be. He's extremely cheap on foot, and I'm pretty sure he has no abilities. Okay, he did bring Lucky Dice and Lucky Git, so he's a little bit costed up, but you really can strip him down to be exceptionally cheap, and it's pretty good overall, I would say. But over here, we are starting to drag down the Infernal Guard. something entirely different, and in fact, quite the polar opposite. But anyway, rest of the build, though, I'm really struggling with here. These Infernal Ironsworn are barely touched. I mean, they were just fighting zombies and skeletons, so it's not like I would expect them to be touched. But even still, the small amount of damage that they has taken is pretty alarming. I have to just keep trying to mop up the rest of these units if I can, kill them in the late game. It's definitely going to be tricky. Continuously cycle charging with the Hex Race. Their terror has also been pretty key in seeing off a lot of the laborers. But not to mention, I mean, I'm talking about the Infernal Ironsworn. Astrogoth is also here, just running around absolutely murdering everything. And as we've seen in previous replays, Astrogoth himself is a Chad and can be very tough to kill. And especially Manfred himself, I don't think he really has what it takes to get the job done. But anyway, Ironsworn still have their grenades too. They're going to be able to throw those at my cavalry, and all of a sudden, really starting to run out of steam very heavily. So yeah, the lack of AoE magic damage on my part was a huge loss. I feel like it's probably too risky to try and take a Mortis Engine here, although, I don't know, you could probably also bog down the Chaos Dwarf shooting units to such a good degree that they wouldn't be able to shoot super effectively against. But the thing is, it's just risky because of the high burst damage of the ranged attacks. They're all fire damage, right? So they're getting a damage increase against a Mortis Engine, as they do against this corpse guard here. It's exploded by grenades. Yeah, so it's a tough matchup potentially, but I think this is probably going to be one of the more favorable matchups, at least on paper. But if you can really crack the Winds of Magic situation, again, one Wind of Death here, I don't know that it would have changed the outcome of the battle totally, but there were certainly some opportunities where could have swung things in a direction, in my direction, but I guess that's just kind of a learning experience here. Yeah, the Hex Race, actually surprisingly effective. I wasn't sure about them. Out of all my cavalry picks, I think they were maybe most effective. The Blood Knights were pretty far off from paying for themselves, unfortunately, but these guys got reasonably close. The Black Knights, they're okay. Might not take them again, but definitely would take some AoE magic damage. Maybe even the Dragon. Again, we come back to that risk. Very risky to get shot on the Dragon. It's a much bigger target, much more expensive, but the breath attacks, I think, would be pretty critical in taking out those elite infantry units. So yeah, take Manfred on the Dragon, take Wind of Death, and make sure you have options to kill elite infantry, not in melee, because I think even if I had brought Graveguard, I don't know if they're really going to do a lot here. Graveguard with great weapons, their attack, even with the anti-infantry bonus and like a corpse cart around, I don't think it's high enough to actually get through. Infernal Ironsworn probably would trade a little bit better into the Fireglaves, but even then, their stats are good enough that it might not work out that well. So it's an interesting matchup, certainly, and never thought I'd be hearing myself say that about vampire counts. They tend to have very kind of tilted, stilted matchups often in very weird directions, but this is one where, I don't know, I think it bears exploring a little bit, perhaps, by someone else than me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.